Hello, Richard here. And today I want to share with you the latest acquisition for my home workshop, which is this rather interesting looking height gauge. Now these go by various different names. I guess most generically it would be called a height micrometer. They're also called height transfer gauges because they don't directly measure the height. You transfer the height onto this to measure it. Most popularly, they're probably known as Cadillac gauges or Playchecks. Playcheck was the sort of model name the Cadillac gauge company gave to their particular brand. Starrett branded theirs as the DigiCheck, and Mitutoyo, they call their version of this the Height Master. So why am I showing you this? Well, first of all, it's quite an interesting device. I hadn't seen one of these before, and they're not something you come across every day. They're quite obsolete now. But the main reason is that you can pick these up really, really cheaply, and what they let you do is measure heights above a surface plate from between, say, 3/8 of an inch or 10 millimeters, all the way up to 12 inches or 300 millimeters with an accuracy of a 10,000th of an inch, and they are really accurate. In a moment, we'll set it up and I'll show you it working, show you what you can do with this. Like I said, you can pick these up really cheaply now. They're not really used anymore in mainstream industry, but they've largely been replaced with digital height gauges. So there's a lot of these on the market, and because a lot of people don't even know what they go really cheaply. Now this one, I paid £15 for this, UK, which is probably about $18, $19. Shipping was about £5. That's cheaper than you can actually buy a cheap Chinese digital height gauge, which would be really squirrely and probably wouldn't be that reliable. So generally you can pick these up secondhand on eBay or Facebook Marketplace anywhere from sort of 20 to £40, so under $50. And as I say, for that you're getting a precision piece of kit. These are really expensive. To give you an example, the Mitutoyo Height Master, if you want to buy a Height Master, similar range to this, they are about £3,000 UK, or which is about $3,800. Now, over the years, there have been a few different makes of these. This is the Cadillac gauge style, but this one was actually made by a German company called Hommelwerk, but it is identical to a Cadillac gauge. And I think probably Hommelwerk were the ones that actually made the Cadillac gauge in the first place, because the Cadillac gauges say they were made in West Germany, and as does this. So if you know any history on that, then let me know in the comments. I'd be really interested to know the sort of any history about Cadillac gauge and Hommelwerk and those companies. There was a company in England made them called Frenco, which is Frost Engineering, and Coles Hill. They made a version of one of these. Trimos, Swiss company, they made one of these. And as I say, I think Mitutoyo were the only people still making a version of this. So anyway, enough of all that. Let's have a look at how it actually works. Okay, so let's take a look at how it actually works. Now what it is basically a big vertical micrometer. So we've got a micrometer dial at the top here, and this is the shaft of the micrometer. And on there we've got a series of discs that are all spaced 1 inch apart. On the side there's a scale. So with a combination of the scale on the side and the micrometer reading, you can determine the exact height of any of these steps or discs. Now to make this work, you're actually going to need a couple of extra things. One is a dial test indicator on a stand, and the other is something to measure. So let's get that set up. The first thing we're going to need is something to measure the height of. So for that, I'm going to be measuring the height of this cylinder square. And I happen to know that the height of this is exactly 5 inches, so that'll give us a really good test of the accuracy of this. I'll just demonstrate that using the digital calipers. So let's just get these on here. And we can verify that this is actually 5 inches. So the caliper there showing us we're smack on 5 inches long on this, and they're pretty accurate, these calipers. Not as accurate maybe as a micrometer, but I don't have one that big. Because this is a height transfer gauge, this doesn't directly measure the height of something, it kind of indirectly measures it via you transferring the height from something else. So to do that, we're going to use a surface gauge with a test indicator on it. And the idea is you bring the test indicator over to the part, and then you zero out the reading on the test indicator using your fine adjuster. And I'll show you this more closely in a moment. And when you've got 0 here, you then bring this over to the height gauge and adjust the micrometer until you get 0 on the gauge, and then you read off how high the part is. So let me show you that and it'll make a lot more sense. Right, so what we'll do is we'll move the test indicator over to the part, and we'll get that on there, and then just using the fine adjust screw, I'm going to zero that out. So we'll bring that up to 0. Now this is a pretty old test indicator, has a bit of stiction, so we'll just help it along, give it a little tap. This is a 1/2 thousandths indicator, so the divisions are thousandths and the dot divisions are 1/2 thousandth, so reasonably accurate, even if a little worn out. Lots of play and backlash. There we go, we get it on a 0. So now we've got that zeroed out, we transfer that height over to the gauge. So we move to the nearest disc, and we'll just put that just over the disc, put the stylus just over the disc, And then what we do is we turn the micrometer dial on the top, and we raise the disc up and keep an eye on the dial gauge as the stylus makes contact with the disc and starts to move. Again, we'll just remove a bit of stiction from here. And we keep turning the micrometer until we get back to our 0, which is the same height as the part. So there we are on 0. And if we look over on the micrometer scale, you can see that we're almost smack on 0, just slightly under 0. So we're probably maybe a 10,000th under 5 inches, according to this. So the major divisions here, 0, 1, 2, they're thousandths, and the small graduations are 10,000ths. So you can see it's very easy to read down to a 10,000th of an inch with this. And that's basically it. That's basically how you use this to measure the height of a part. Now you can use this the other way around. So rather than transferring the height from the part over to the gauge, what you could do is if you had a load of parts that you wanted to check the dimensions of, you could set the gauge to the desired height, and then you could zero your indicator on that desired height, then transfer that over to the part, and that'll give you a plus or minus reading as to how far over or under tolerance you are. So that's another way of using it. If you've ever used these in the past, or you know any tips and tricks that you can do beyond what I've shown here, then please let us know in the comments below and share your knowledge with everybody, because I think these are very underrated tools, very obscure tools these days. So it'd be really great to find out a little bit more and hear some of your reminiscences and recollections of these devices if you're familiar with them. Right, so there you go. That's the universal height micrometer, or height transfer gauge, or Cadillac gauge, or play check, whatever you want to call it. So if you've got a home workshop and you want the ability to measure from sort of here to here with an accuracy of a 10,000th of an inch, and you want to be able to do that for around about £40, then look no further. These are great value for money. They're a precision bit of kit and a useful addition to the workshop. It's not something you use every day. It's not something you might use every week, you know, but there are just those particular jobs where you want to measure the height of something, and well, look no further.